everybody, and welcome to the channel Crossing the Spiritual Streams. My name is Tandra, and today we're going to continue our tarot card reading series, and we're going to be talking about the Suit of Cups. But before we get started, just want to let you know I appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel. Don't forget it's free, and you can hit the bell icon to be notified of any future videos that we put out whenever. Hopefully YouTube will do that. Sometimes I have problems with that. And also to share this with your friends and family so they can watch the video too. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, and also leave comments in the comments section because we like to read those and any suggestions that you might have for future videos that you'd like to see. Also, if you'd like to donate to the channel, there will be a link in the description to PayPal. So here we go, we'll get started. Okay, the cups. The cups suit corresponds to hearts in a regular playing card suit, and so as you can imagine, it deals very much with your emotions, but it also deals with water, because if you think about it, if you have a cup, you're holding water in it, so it's a very water, emotionally type of suit. It deals with your relationships. Once again, it deals with your intuition. The Wands deals with your intuition a little bit, but more of a higher spirituality involved, where the cups, it deals with your inner intuition, your feeling of your gut instinct, you know, working off of instinct and intuition rather than your logic and that kind of thing. It's also the love card. It deals with your subconscious, your soul, your feelings, your bliss, but also melancholy, romance, and that kind of thing. It is associated with the summer season. And like I said earlier, it corresponds to the suit of hearts and playing cards. And it deals with Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces in astrology, because those are the water signs. Usually on cups cards, there's going to be the number of cups there is involved. And then usually showing flowing water of some sort. All the cups cards should have water on them somewhere, because they do deal with the water symbol a lot, and there will be a lot of water symbolism involved. There might be some other things involved as well, but generally it's going to deal with the romance, love, intuition, feelings, flowing feelings, and water and that kind of thing. So we'll go on and talk about the Ace of Cups. Like all aces, aces are beginnings to things. But it's also, in the case of the cups, it's a slightly different too, because it also deals with overflowing abundance of something. So it might be the beginning of a new romance, a new love, a new career, a new something. It might be a beginning of something that you're going to feel very, very good about, but it's also an overflowing of abundance. It's kind of an abundance card as well, or of healing, or that kind of thing, or it could be a beginning of an emotional or social journey, or an emotional journey of some sort. But it's a continuing flow of water, so it's a little bit different than, you know, it's not just the beginning. It kind of keeps going a little bit. You can get your joy from friends or family. It also deals with your compassion and your love. Your connection with others, which is interesting, because usually the ones are kind of a lonely kind of number, but it kind of still deals with that a little bit. And it also deals with abundance and success, as we were mentioning earlier. So, like the cards were showing, this is what the overflowing water represents, because it's kind of like one of those like chocolate fountains or something, where it's just going to keep coming and then going flow back down and keep coming again, and that's where the abundance symbolism comes from, and that kind of thing. But like on this card, there's kind of a dove, eagle-looking bird involved, so that might mean something a little bit different to you as well. Also, it's got a hand coming out of the clouds. It's holding on to this, because that kind of deals a little bit with the spirituality part of it. So it deals with spirituality, but on a slightly different level than the Wands cards does. This card is kind of interesting because it shows a fairy with a candle. Candles kind of in some symbology might mean eternal light or eternal love kind of thing, and she is kind of holding on to this, so, you know, kind of think of an eternal flame sort of deal. So it's interesting that this cup card actually has that symbolism involved. Okay, now the Two of Cups. Twos, like I said when we were talking about the Wands, is twos are very much a coming together or a connection or that kind of thing. And it's because it's the Cups card, which often deals with that coming together or loving and that kind of thing. It's a perfect symbolism for the cup suit. So it does deal with very much with connection and lovers and possibly sexual attraction or bonding or uniting of two forces, or of ideas, or two people uniting of some sort. And it also could deal with partnerships or truce if there's been a conflict, or reconciliation. So depending on what the reading's about, it could mean coming together or bonding again. And that is shown a lot in the traditional Cups cards. This one's interesting. A couple of these have actually the medical caduceus on there, which sometimes that might have something to do with medical things, depending on what the reading's about, because it's just one of the symbols that happens to be on those particular cards. It's not on these others, so that once again that could help you interpret the cards a little differently depending on how they show up in the reading. But they show two people coming together. Like in this case, it looks a little bit more like it might be a truce. It could be lovers coming together, or a marriage, or a bonding of some sort that way, because that's possible. But it also just might mean a truce. In this case, it definitely looks like a marriage or a loving type of bonding there. And this one, they look very much like lovers as well, and they do also in this card. So once again, it depends on the interpretation that the person might have. Okay, now the Three of Cups. 3 is a very creative energy, like we mentioned earlier, and Cups being very emotional, that can be kind of havoc-raising in some ways, because it could deal with being frivolous or superficial joy and that kind of thing. But it also could deal very much with your sense of community, because remember 3 is kind of a group, or support that you might get, or social organizations. Once again, 3s are creative energy, so it might deal with your creativity. It's also a very giving type of number. It also deals with close friendships that you might have. So this is very much a community spirit, and that's almost always shown on the cards. You've got 3 people here, each putting their cups up in the air. These guys are out partying and celebrating. These guys look like, they're doing some sort of communal ritual. These guys are celebrating a new birth here, so like I said, it deals with birth at times and that kind of thing, and they're celebrating. So it deals a lot with that whole community spirit, a group, and celebration, because it's a loving. Cups are emotional, so you want, you're happy and you're celebrating whatever this happens to be. Okay, and then we go on to the 4s. Now 4s are stable energy, and also a supportive energy, and kind of a foundation energy. And so if you're into the Cups, on a little bit more negative side, it might mean that you're taking what you have for granted, because you have quite a bit if you've got the 4, and you just might not realize what you have. You've got it, but you just might not be looking at it from that way. It might also be hard to see what's being offered to you, because maybe somebody has something to offer you, but you're just not looking in the right direction. You also might be focused on what you don't have rather than what you do have. So even though 4s are a stable energy, I always kind of see that as, okay, you might mean that you are stable, but then you're not noticing how stable you are, or what you have, or what's there for you. You're looking at everything else instead. So you could be discouraged, might be unmotivated at this point. You just not care about much of anything. Boredom, apathy, and indifference. So if you think about it, sometimes if you are stable in your emotions, you might get very bored, because sometimes we want excitement or things going on in our life. Or if we are very stable in what we have, we might not be able to recognize what we have, because it's just there. So we take it for granted, and it's there and it's for us. And that's symbolized a lot of times in the cards in different ways. Traditionally, it's a hand holding out a cup to them, but they're looking down at the other cups, and they're not even seeing what's being offered to them. That's a common theme. Or in this case, he has cups in front of him, and he's looking kind of downtrodden, like, oh, I've got this. But then there's a mermaid off to the side that's got a cup, trying to give it to him or show him that, hey, look what you have here. Look at you've got beautiful things. And he's not having none of it. And then also in this card, she's got her cups outside. They're being filled with water, but she's inside looking all sad because she can't go out and do what she wants to do. So she's not seeing what she does have. She's seeing, what's not good in her life. So it's a kind of a, not so positive energy in a lot of ways when it comes up, but it can be, all the cards can be positive and negative depending on how you want to look at it, because even though she's not seeing what she has here, I could also maybe see this as she's longing for something, or waiting for something else to come along, or waiting for the rain to end so that she can go out and do things. And so that might be a more positive outlook on it as well. Okay, now the fives, in fives in general, are usually very much of a change or disruption, or something happening that's not going the way it had been going before. It's halfway between the 1 and the 10, so it's a pivotal type of card. And so in the cups, because cups deal with your emotions and kind of things, it could be dealing with loss or grief or disappointment, or something that you're not happy about has happened. You're sad, you're discontent, you're let down, you're unhappy with what's happened. You could be dwelling on your past so far at this point. Also, you might be feeling some self-pity and regret. And you might not be realizing what opportunities are out there for you, and that there are situations that you can be hopeful about. So it kind of carries forward from the 4 a little bit, carried on into the 5, where you're just still not happy. You're still not seeing what's out there. Maybe you've lost something. This one's interesting. It has a mermaid here, but the little boy's not there anymore. But she has some, broken cups. She feels kind of sad. This card's interesting when it pops up in a reading for me, because I see the Little Mermaid story, where she was always hoping to go out and be in the real world, but she has to give up something to do that, or lose something to do that. So you might interpret that card a little bit that way too. In the traditional ones, they've got some cups spilled over, and they're dwelling on that, even though they've got a couple that are still up. So they're dwelling on some sort of loss or something that's there. In this case, she's got her cups all spilled out here, but she's not noticing the growth in the garden and that kind of thing, and she's dismayed. So something, big has changed in their life, or they've lost something, or they're not seeing what opportunities are there for them. And so that's how these different ones will show that. Okay, now the 6, we're getting into a little bit better energy. A lot of times by the time we get to 6s, because 6s are very of a kind of a mothering, nurturing kind of energy, I always see. And so when you get to the 6, you might be more nostalgic, because remember, the cups is an emotional card, so you're looking at your emotions, and you might be nostalgic for things or for your memories. It also might be a very healing number, because mothers will nurture and heal you. You might be sentimental about things. You might be stuck in the past. But it also deals with childhood innocence, which is kind of cool, because, when you're into 6s, you might be thinking about the past a lot, which might be kind of a childish thing to do in some ways. You might want to be returning back to that childhood time. You also might be looking to your past to solve something that is emotionally kind of a hole that you're feeling. Something's not there, something's gone, and you might look to your past to kind of fulfill that and come back to that. So it has that kind of energy involved. And you can see in this card, there's lots of different ones. In the traditional one, we have the 2 children, so the youthful energy, out there, and they're filling their cups full of flowers. And so I don't always see that as the negative side that a lot of people think of, being nostalgic or looking for that kind of energy. I see it as, hey, these little kids have been able to go out and gather all this stuff and be happy. But then in this case, they look like they've lost a little bit more. But then this shows the childhood innocence going on, where they're just out here playing and filling up their cups. But this one shows the nostalgicness. Maybe she's looking on a relationship she had and she doesn't have it anymore. She might be a little bit older, or she might be longing for something she doesn't have, emotionally, and that kind of thing. So it's kind of cool with the different pictures on how you might be able to interpret that. Okay, we've got the 7 of Cups, and 7's usually a little bit more disruptive, kind of like the 5s, but they're more of a spiritual number and dealing with that. So now we're getting along, where you're farther along in the set, and you have choices to make. You might be involved in wishful thinking, because you've had your loss and you're upset in the 5s, and you've had your looking back on the past in the 6, and so now you're just wishing for things to just happen. You're just hoping things will happen the way you want them to. You might have a number of choices to go on. You might have several different routes. It also deals with your dreams and how you might act on those. And it might deal with abundance, because remember, Cups does deal a little bit with abundance type of energy. So it might deal with your dreams coming true and what might happen. And also the idea that you need to separate illusion from reality. Okay? And so we have different ones that depict this rather differently. In this case, I see almost a magician and a wizard, and he has his 7 cups up here in the air, and almost all the cups are filled with some wonderful wish or some wonderful thing. We have butterflies and rainbows and castles and kittens and those kinds of things, and he's a wizard. So when that card comes up, I almost see as you can manifest your dreams and what you want. But then in the more traditional ones, they might be a little bit more scary and a little bit more, some of the dreams that are up there are snakes and other things. I mean, there's some good ones here, like, laurel wreaths or something, but, you have to separate what's real and what's fantasy with these cards a little bit more. So when those show up, it might be a little bit more you need to, pay attention to what you're looking at and what illusion might be around you. But then this card goes a totally different route. It's showing her with a butterfly kite, and she's flying in the air, and she's got her cups trailing behind her. So I see this as more of a youthful energy. She's able to go out and have fun and just be very cheerful, and I almost see it as, she's very emotionally happy in this card. So when this card comes up, I see that as a little bit more of an emotional happiness card. So once again, you can kind of interpret cards a little differently depending on the way that they show up. Okay, the 8 of Cups. Now, 8s you're really close to the end. You're really close to the fulfillment of the 9s and the 10s. So at this point, it's time to let go a lot of times. So it might deal with letting go, but it also might deal with being abandoned. You feel like somebody's let you go, kind of thing. You could be searching for your truth. You might be willing to accept less by this point. You might be willing to seek a higher purpose, because we are getting towards the end. You might not be satisfied with your past accomplishments at this point. It also might deal with facing new challenges, because we are getting towards the end, and so you might be time for something new. So it's time to maybe let something go and go on to something new. Okay, and and that's reflected a lot of times is they've stacked up their cups neatly, and then they're going on. They're walking away. In this case, in this one, they just they've finished off. They're letting it go. This one is a little bit more contemplative, looking out over the sea, and I think that's kind of where they're looking towards something new. And then in this one, somebody's walking away from her, so that's more the abandonment issue, or having to let somebody go or something go, and it could be a very emotional time. So, it's depicted slightly differently on each one. Okay, and then the 9s. The 9s and 10s are getting towards completion at this point. So, 9 of Cups is very much a wish fulfillment type of card. You're happy, you've reached your success, you're happy, you might have gotten recognition, you might have reached your spiritual and material rewards and fulfillment. It's kind of the wish card. You can, wishes might come true if you get this card, or if you're wishing for something, it might be a symbol that now's the time to go for it or get it. It also might show your satisfaction and that you're ready for things to be completed. You've gone through the whole series of the 1 through the 8 now at this point, so now you're ready for it to be done. You went through all the disappointments and all the other emotional upheavals in the roller coaster. Okay, and a lot of times it's interesting how different ones show different things. This one, she's preparing for a celebration and a feast. So it looks like, okay, the harvest is done, it's time to kind of celebrate and party, she's pouring wine, she's got feast out there. This one, she's got cups all around her. It looks like she's been partying a little bit. She's got some spilled cups there, so she's kind of cheerful and happy and just, whoa, okay. this guy looks very pleased with himself and very happy, and he has his cups up in the air. So that's kind of leads you towards the wish fulfillment kind of thing, because when things are in the air, you kind of put your wishes out there. And then in this one, they're on a picnic, and it's a family or friends and family, and they're celebrating. And the ladybug is like luck too, and it's very large and prominent in the picture. So it's interesting how different artists have depicted that card differently depending on where they wanted to focus their energy on. Okay, so now we're at the Ten of Cups, which, like I said, is the completion card. So now you've reached your emotional happiness. You've reached the top part. It's also maybe time to come home. You get your fulfillment, your emotional stability should be good. You've got your security, your happiness. You get it all. You're having it all at this point. You've went through all the emotional bad stuff. You went through everything else. You've learned your lessons. You've done everything. Now your dreams, wants, wishes are now being fulfilled. You've got everything. So in the 9, you're ready for that party, and then the 10, basically you are partying. You've reached the pinnacle. You've gotten everything. And oftentimes it's depicted by cups up in the rainbow or up in the air. It usually shows a family together, or a couple with children. A lot of times, in this case, it's a couple with their child and a dog and a cat, and they have everything that they've ever emotionally wanted, basically. It doesn't have the rainbow in this one, but it's the same kind of idea in all the cards, that they've reached their emotional happiness and pinnacle. Everything they've ever wanted in life, they've gotten. Okay, so now we go on to the different face cards. The four of them, and like we mentioned in the wands, is the pages are the youthful energy, the ones that have a lot of, so in this case, because it deals with emotions, they have a lot of idealism, and they're sensitive, and they're the dreamers. They're the young ones, they're very naive. They might have a lot of innocence, and it might deal with the inner child, or their heads might be in the clouds. It also might deal with escapism and insecurity, because you might be going back into your childishness. Unexpected inspiration from your subconscious or your unconscious might show up. And also it's a good time to be open to new ideas, because pages do bring in that youthful energy, and they're also, I see them as messengers, and so a new idea might be coming to you, a new message, basically a message from your head or from your own spirit or self. And so, like we mentioned in the one suit, is all the face cards oftentimes will just represent either the person that you're reading for, or a person in their life that's going to show up, or the characteristics that that card is supposed to have might be their characteristics or something they might be looking out for. And so the pages show that youthful energy. It might show their idealism and optimism. She's very happy and cheerful, not realizing that it might be something more heavy coming down the road kind of thing. But also, they've got their wish, fish in their cup, so they've got everything. This one's kind of the wishfulness and going, the naivete maybe, because she looks like she's smelling flowers. She might, have her head in the clouds just a little bit, but she's dreaming. And she has what she wants out of it there. Okay, the Knight of Cups is very much like the Page in a lot of ways, but he's a little bit further along. The Knights are the ones that go out and actually do the action a lot of times, instead of they might bring a message back, but usually it's going to be the Pages. So the Knight of Cups, being an emotional card, they're going to be the idealists of the group. They're going to be very charming and full of artistic ability and graceful. They are the diplomats, so they're the ones that they're not like the Knight of Wands. It's just going to go out and charge into things and then go, oh wait, what's going on? They're going to be the ones that might actually be the ones that bring people together in a battle, or, because it can be the mediators, the diplomats, the negotiators, those kinds of people, because they're more emotional and they see things more on the emotional side. It might be time for you to listen to your heart at that point. They could be the messenger of news or an invitation that will affect you emotionally, because it is the emotional suit. So they might be a messenger or bring you some news of some sort, but it will affect you emotionally, not just tell you something. Okay, and so once again, being knights are usually on horseback. As you can see, they're not charging like in the wands. Or, the horses aren't charging through and going through. I oftentimes see them as coming back from battle, holding up the cups. A lot of times that's what it looks like. Also, maybe they have their victory now because they did negotiate the peace or that kind of thing. You might get that idea when you look at these cards. Okay, now we got the Queen and the King. And the Queens and the Kings, of course, are on top of the game. They're at the highest pinnacle. The Cups cards being just the emotional card, she's very full of kindness and warmth. She's the healer. She has lots of intuition. She can counsel people, so people might come to her for advice. She's very supportive kind of energy, maybe even to the point of giving too much of herself, because she is the emotional one. It's a good time to be looking at your thoughts and your feelings, because it is the feeling suit. She has some honesty and fairness going on, but she's also a strong rock, which is interesting, because even though she's emotional, she's also very strong in that way. And she can use her intuition very well. But she can also lack common sense and rationality too, because she is emotional. And sometimes she might act more on emotional terms rather than rational ones. And so, like the other court cards, it's interesting with the Cups ones, they almost always have her almost on a precipice or out in the middle of, nowhere a lot of times, or like, this one, she's out hanging over this edge of this water here, which is kind of interesting. But there's a lot of symbolism in some of these cards. Like, look, it's got a little kind of cherub on her throne here, and cherubs and angels, because I kind of see that as almost like the mother energy that you get from a lot of the queens, and this one especially, because she kind of has that nurturing energy to her. So you kind of almost get that from these cards here. Also, you can kind of see, just being the queen themselves, they have everything. They're kind of on top of their game. Being the Cups cards, you will kind of feel like, okay, emotionally this might be a good thing, or, whatever, depending on what the reading's about. Okay, so now we got the King, and the King's very much like the Queen. He is very wise. He's the balance figure. He, between his head and his heart, so even though he's very emotional, he can think, which is good. He's very devoted. He's another advisor, kind of like the Queen. People might come to him. She's a counselor. He's the advisor. People might come to him for help or ask him for. He's very generous, because the Cups energy is a very generous, open one. He has a very strong relationship between his understanding, between what's his emotions and what's going on. It might be an older male, so if the card represents somebody in their life, it might mean like a father figure or a boss or some other older uncle, some other person in their life that might be useful to them, that's emotional, or somebody they can lean on. They're also very political and diplomatic, because remember, the Knights of Cups were diplomatic, and so the King as well are the diplomats of the suit. And once again, we got kings on their throne. He's kind of over the precipice a little bit, and kind of, he looks kind of stern, which is always kind of interesting. This one, he's got his fish going between his two cups, which is a little bit different. This one, he's just sitting there calmly on his throne. This one, I see, this one looks a little bit more benevolent than some of the others. I've noticed that none of them actually have somebody coming up to them and asking them questions or counselors or something, but maybe it's because they have that on another card in the major arcana. But I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I get all of the major ones in the suits, all of the face cards of the suits. They don't show a lot of symbolism in them a lot of times. I would like to have a deck that actually shows a little bit more symbolism in it, because I think it might be easier to interpret those. But you are just supposed to kind of just go, okay, well, it's the King of Cups, and he's the diplomat, or he's the healer, or he's the emotional, he's got a good head on his shoulders, but he's also, a good feeling kind of person. And so then you're supposed to get an idea of where that goes when it shows up in a reading. And so there you go. And we go on from there. Okay, so next time we get together, we will discuss the Pentacles suit and deal with that, which is kind of an interesting suit. I really like the Pentacles suit. Okay, so remember to give the channel or the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, share with your friends and family, leave comments in the comments section, and we'll see you for the next video. Bye-bye.